Miami Dolphins make a pair of roster moves this afternoon, and both of them caught me by surprise and were shocking in my opinion, and I assume you guys will think so as well. And we'll just jump right into the news here. David Long Jr. has been waived to make room on this team for Jack Stoll, the tight end from the Philadelphia Eagles who was just released, and the Dolphins claim him. So if you were keeping track at home, that is now 2 straight days that the Dolphins claim someone off of NFL waivers, with Tyrel Dodson happening yesterday. And we'll talk about him more and how it relates to David Long Jr. in just a second. But this is why you are subscribed to the channel, because we are going to cover all Miami Dolphins news around this squad. We are getting so close to 64K subscribers. Join the channel today and hit that sub button. All right, let's start with the David Long Jr. news. And I know that he was just the subtraction for the addition of Jack Stoll, and it was a corresponding move. But I do think it's more significant that they felt okay to waive David Long Jr. And quite a fall from grace from the linebacker. Signed a 2-year deal last offseason for the Miami Dolphins. Didn't have the best first year in that Vic Fangio system. Was hoping to have a better year with Anthony Weaver this season, and it just simply was not the case. Plus, David Long Jr. was actually voted a captain for this football team to start the year. So he was a captain in the offseason, and then now at week 11, he's not even on the team. And it's hard to not justify him being released, I suppose. He was terrible this year, guys. And we talked about it 2.5 weeks ago. I made a video right before the Buffalo Bills game that the Dolphins needed to make a switch at linebacker. They needed to bench David Long Jr. and go with someone else, because you see the grades. He's just been terrible in the first 8 games of the season. The PFF grades aren't everything, but when you watch the film as well, he was one of the worst coverage linebackers in all football, allowing a completion percentage of 90+%, allowing damn near 15 yards per attempt, not being able to be good in the tackling game either, missing 14 tackles. Like, it was a nightmare season for David Long Jr., and you had to move him off the football field. And they went with Anthony Walker Jr., the man who they signed a 1-year contract with in free agency after he came over from the Cleveland Browns organization. And I'm not going to come out here and act like he's been some superstar in the last 2 games against the Rams and Bills with David Long Jr. finally being benched, but I will say that he's been at least a little bit better. David Long Jr. was a bottom 10 graded out linebacker. He was literally in the bottom 10 on the PFF rankings. Now, Anthony Walker Jr. wasn't that much higher, but you simply had to make the switch. And now once a captain is now off this football team. And you wondered if something was up when you got this news yesterday, because remember, yesterday we made a video on this, but Tyrel Dodson got claimed by the Miami Dolphins after he was released by the Seattle Seahawks. And when you initially claimed Tyrel Dodson, you had then 6 inside linebackers. You had Walker Jr., you had Jordan Brooks, you had David Long Jr., Channing Tindall, Duke Riley, and then Dodson. So you had to imagine that one of those linebackers was going to get the boot, especially when you contemplate the fact that an offensive lineman is likely going to be added to this team. Well, they added a tight end, and David Long Jr. was the one who ultimately got the kick off this squad. And let me know what your one-word reaction to the David Long Jr. roster move was. I am generally curious to see what the Dolphins fans have to say about Long Jr. no longer being on this team. Mello's one word. Shout out to Mello. If you have any questions on Mello Seltzer, my new favorite drink, let me know on Twitter. But I am shocked. I really am. And even though we detailed how bad he was and how he really couldn't get any run on this football team anymore, it should not be any surprise that he was expendable, because he was simply never going to get back on the field. And once you make a switch from a captain to a bench player, you saw it with Dodson getting benched in favor of a rookie in Seattle. It's just better to cut ties, because when you have someone that has started every game and really been a leader of this locker room and they get benched, they're not going to have that same leadership mentality and same upbeat spirit in that group, in that locker room. So you kind of could have forecasted this move being made, but it's still unbelievable that it ultimately was made. And you knew something was coming after the Tyrel Dodson move. I was shocked when they claimed him. I was intrigued, but I didn't think they would go out and actually grab Tyrel Dodson, who had 71 tackles early on the season for the Seattle Seahawks. You'll be curious to see if he's able to get any run on this football team going forward. Probably won't be ready for this Sunday's game against the Raiders, so you'll see Duke Riley / Channing Tandall be your third linebacker this upcoming week. But when you talk about week 12 and beyond, Tyrel Dodson might be that guy. All right, let's flip it over to Jack Stoll now, the man that you added to this Miami Dolphins roster. Tight end who's been in the league for 4 years now, and he doesn't really do much. It's as simple as that. He doesn't do much. He's a blocking tight end. He's only had 2 receptions this year, and he's been that way for his entire career. Bounced around. He was actually on the Giants practice squad, I believe, at one point. He's spent all 4 regular season games that he's played in a Philadelphia Eagles uniform. And I talked with our Eagles host, Chase Sr., about what Jack Stoll brings to the table, because I knew he was a blocking tight end, but I was like, hey, does he got any speed? Does he got any hands? How is he going to impact this team? Well, he basically laid it out like this. He's essentially a right tackle. So you add another blocking tight end to this depth chart, which is intriguing because when you think about this group that you've had, Jonnu Smith has been solid blocking, but he's your only receiving threat in this group. Durham Smythe is primarily a blocking tight end. Julian Hill is a blocking tight end. And now you add in Jack Stoll. So you basically have 3 blocking tight ends to complement Jonnu Smith. And it is good to note that earlier in the week, Tanner Conner was placed on IR after suffering an injury in that Los Angeles Rams game. So Stoll replaces him as the 4th tight end. And based off just what we've seen and why they added Stoll to this group, it seems like Mike McDaniel likes having 4 tight ends on the roster that are healthy. Or in the next couple days, if Isaiah Wynn gets activated from PUP list or they sign an offensive lineman to the active roster to combat the Austin Jackson injury, Julian Hill might be on the outs. Hill has not been good this year. He is on my shit list. If there's 2 players to be on my shit list with this roster, it's Julian Hill and it's Jake Bailey, the punter. So maybe, just maybe, Julian Hill will ultimately be cut, or Mike McDaniel just wants to keep 4 tight ends on this group. But let me know, B. Chris Grier, should the Dolphins cut Julian Hill? Type Y if you think they should. Type N if you think he should stay. I think he should be released, if I'm going to be honest. I'm not the biggest fan of Julian Hill, and the grades kind of support that. He is only used as a blocking tight end. He is. And why do the Dolphins need 2 blocking tight ends in Julian Hill and Jack Stoll when you have Alec Ingold? And maybe Alec Ingold ultimately gets placed on IR and is out for a longer period of time because he missed this past game against the Rams, and they want to use Hill or Stoll as that kind of fullback type player Alec Ingold previously was. But you saw the grades on screen. Julian Hill isn't good for this team. He hasn't been as good as a blocker as you would hope, and he certainly gives you absolutely nothing in the passing game as well. So adding a blocking tight end in Jack Stoll is intriguing to me with the future of Julian Hill being in question. Maybe it signifies something with Alec Ingold. We'll ultimately have to see. But it's been quite the week, Dolphins fans. On Monday, you got a win against the Los Angeles Rams, and then on Tuesday, you claim Tyrel Dodson. Austin Jackson's placed on IR. You lose Brandon Pillai after you waived him, and the Seahawks picked him up. And then now you add Jack Stoll and release David Long Jr. It's only Wednesday afternoon, and it's still getting absolutely crazy here on the channel, which is why you need to be subscribed. And we are taking on the Raiders this week on the Gridiron. We are also taking on the Raiders in our Week 11 sub battle. We're at 0 sub, 0 start starting on Wednesday because I wanted to make a clean, fair start since they got a nice little earlier head start. They didn't have a game. They had a bye week. We were on a Monday Night Football game. But let's take down the Raiders report on the field this week, but as well as the YouTube streets. Hit that sub button.